It's been a long time coming. I have gotten a lot of requests to do this, and all I can say is that I hope I can do it the justice that it deserves, being that I'm not on the committee. But welcome to the first ever Rocket League NA Power Ranking Show. My name is Shalthis, and Happy New Year, Happy 2016. I hope that you are all in a good mood. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's Eve. I hope you're not too hungover. It's fairly late now, so hopefully it's eased off a little bit. Or maybe you just kept drinking to keep it going. You know, whatever. I'm not going to judge. But yeah, I'm here. We're going to do this thing. And I'm going to admit, I'm a little apprehensive, personally. I want to make sure that I give this the proper treatment it deserves. Everybody really seems to enjoy the NA Power, or the EU Power Ranking Show. Why is that name on there? I have not... That's weird. Well, you know who number 10 is. So, I guess we'll just get things started, and I'll figure out my animation problems later. But either way, for now, this is it. This is your NA Power Ranking Show. So, as you may know, we, or they, did not do, well, we, as a collective committee, did not do power rankings for this past week. Mainly due to the holidays, mainly due to the fact that there wasn't really a lot going on. So we decided that we would take any major results that happened over the past week and we'll roll them into this upcoming week's power rankings. So, starting with this upcoming week, we will get down back to business and see how the situation looks. But I still wanted to do this show and at least introduce everybody to this concept. For anybody who maybe hasn't seen the EU Power Ranking Show, the gist of this is pretty straightforward. These are the NA Power Rankings. Every week or so, 3 members of the Power Ranking Committee, in particular, Durkind, Gibbs, and Cloudfuel, come together and look over the results of the past week and then rank the top 10 teams in North America. They base that off of that week's performance and collectively how that team's been doing. And that all factors into these rankings. I cannot tell you specifically how these individuals calculate their rankings, but the way it works is that they all individually come up with a top 10 plus. That top 10 is then averaged with each other's top 10, and we get the rankings that you see here. So, I won't spoil things any more than they already have been, but if you haven't seen these rankings yet, we're just going to go over them really quick. These are kind of old because they're from the week of the 23rd, which means they came out, well over a week ago now. But we'll talk about this week's power rankings, the interesting result that took place in them, and then we'll just do our usual thing. After we talk about the rankings, we do a general Q&A where I'll answer any questions about the scene, any questions that I can about the rankings themselves, and try to shed some light on the decisions that were made to get to this point. So without any further ado, let's get down to business. So as you can see, number 10 on this week's power rankings is Electric Zero. Electric Zero consists of Chopped, Kuniv, and Soft Goat. They are debuting on the power rankings this week. So I think what I'll do for this debut episode, while I'm still getting personally caught up on the scene, is I will just give you the actual write-ups that each person did, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, this write-up was done by Cloudfuel, and goes a little something like this. Electric Zero are a team that has regularly been just on the outside of the 10 through 15 spots, namely due to an early event losses to highly ranked teams. This week, though, they were able to show just enough to earn themselves the number 10 spot in this week's power rankings with a win over average players, a close loss to Moonmen, 2-3, and a loss to Jorellis Goodies, 1-3. This spot was a very close race, though, as many of the teams had roughly the same quality of wins and losses, but with Electric Zero managing to take the number 6 team to 5 games, that was just enough to give them the upper edge. Hopefully, as we move into 2016, they'll get more opportunities to prove that they belong in the top 10 and are here to stay. So, that is Electric Zero. Again, they are at your number 10 spot. Let's keep on soldiering forward here. Number 9. Oh, there it is. So, alright. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's not a bug, it's just a hiccup with the thing. But there we go, Electric Zero. Number 9, Mad Magic 2.0. They are going to go up 1 spot from the previous week. This write-up was from Durkin. Taking 2 hard losses against Not and NXS this week, Nexus, Mad Magic 2.0 has been in slow downwards trend. It's quite unfortunate that they had to meet Not so early in the lower brackets, however. If it weren't for Not, it was likely to be Nexus again. This month has been a mishmash of near upsets and quite a few disappointing losses for Mad Magic 2.0, and while they are still within the top 10, they really need to make a breakthrough to change their vector in the ranks. It'll definitely be difficult for Mad Magic 2.0 since they didn't qualify, but nothing is inherently impossible for a team that deserves to be among the best. So, despite the little climb up for Mad Magic 2.0, they are still struggling a bit. It'll be nice to see how they play out the rest of the next few weeks, especially as the RLC Pro League kicks off, hopefully soon. I don't have any updates on that for you. I'm sorry. I'll be sure. The moment I know, you'll all know, too. I'll be sure to spread the word. Well, once I know and once it's final. Whatever. Anyway, moving on. At number 8, SNK Apollo by Cloud Fuel. And, so Mad Magic 2.0 is Soon TM, Steve Gates RL, and Octanes. SNK Apollo consists of Husky, Flo, Azzy, and Prime Thunder and Lars. Yeah, there we go. Alright. SNK Apollo blasted onto the scene a few months ago and have yet to fall out of the rankings since that time. This past week, they qualified for the RPL with wins over average players, Voltage, Dragonfly, and Jorellis Goodies. Their lone loss to Jorellis Goodies in the upper bracket was quickly avenged in the lower bracket, so it doesn't really hurt them much in the long run. They also had a close loss to Moonmen 2-3 in their IRCL match. But considering that Moonmen is ranked number 6 and SNK is in the 7-8 range, that kind of close game is somewhat expected. All in all, SNK has had a pretty solid showing this first year in Rocket League esports and should continue to be a force as we look ahead to 2016. So SNK Apollo didn't move anywhere from last week based off of their performance, but hopefully good things will come for them in the coming weeks now that we are in the brand new year. Very exciting. Alright, so with that being said, number 7, Failure to Launch. And credit to this one goes to Gibbs. Failure to Launch was the only team to come out of the open qualifiers and qualify for the RPL. Their bracket got much easier when Not got knocked to the other side of the bracket early, but that doesn't take away from what Failure's been able to do over the past few weeks. Failure played a tight 3-2 set against Jorellis Goodies to make the Pro League without dropping a set. They've been on a tear recently, but have yet to face a top 5 team during that stretch. They will be one of the underdogs going into the league, but with how much they have grown over the past few weeks, it should be really exciting to see how they play against some of these more established teams. So Failure to Launch consists of Mecha, Jane Zaki, and Geno Cop. Relatively new team on the scene, from my experience. So it's good to see them having such positive success. And good old puppy here has managed to circumvent the gate. Dudge, say hi to everybody. You're going to hide under the desk, or you're going to actually come up and say hi? Come on. Come on up. There we go. Can you come up a little further? You're kind of there. A little bit more. There he is. You can kind of see him. Come up here. Say hi. Alright. He's kind of out of frame, but he's there. Alright. Good to see you, Dudgy. Okay, anyway. Moving right along. Number 6, Moonmen. So Moonmen got the short end of the stick this past week in the RPL qualifiers, facing both Not and Orange Creamsicle. They unfortunately lost both games, but were at least able to take a game off of each team. On a more positive note, Moonmen did win against Lucky Bounce, Electric Zero, and SNK Apollo, which helped them stay relatively close to their ranking from last week. They are unquestionably a talented team and certainly pose a threat to any of the teams ahead of them, but have yet to show that they can constantly hang with or beat them in a tournament setting. Short of that, they've had a pretty stellar ascent up the power rankings over the past month, and I, for one, am very excited to see them continue improving to the next year. Now, of course, it's from Cloud Fuel, Moonmen. Going down one spot this week, they consist of Amoni, Enigma Please, and Corrupt. So, basically, I think what I'm doing this week is just kind of giving anybody who's not fully familiar with the NA scene a small introduction to the teams, the players, and how they've fared recently. But with that being said, let's begin our top 5, shall we? So in the top 5, number 5, Orange Creamsicle, and that consists of Edwind, Quinn Lobdell, and Gambit. They're going to move up one spot. When Orange Creamsicle play, they usually play pretty well. They took Nexus in 5 this week to keep that mini rivalry pretty even. Nexus for me has just been posting more results, so they get the edge over Creamsicle. Creamsicle needs to play more, and in January that should be fixed with the Pro League and any other big events that show up. Hopefully we can see this close top 5 butting heads a little more often. So that's from Gibbs, and that is your 5th team. So, Orange Creamsicle moving up one spot this week, cracking into the top 5 yet again. Personally, they've always been a team that's always been on my radar, so I'm curious to see how this top 5 will play out, especially considering how hotly contested these upper echelons of the NA rankings are. With that said, number 4, Nexus. So, Gibbs did this write-up as well, and he writes, "Phew, thank God for that one extra spot in the Pro League. Nexus almost didn't qualify for the RPL when they lost a super close set to Orange Creamsicle and then got trounced by Knot. They did pull it off against Drillus Goodies, though, to claim that late edition spot. Nexus have been posting results as of late, but this week was not one of them. In order for them to climb into that top 3 echelon, they will have to take more sets off of the teams like they did to Cosmic a few weeks back. So, when it comes to Nexus, formerly Untethered, I was really sad when they fell out of the Rocket Royale, and because of scheduling they weren't able to re-qualify, and they kind of fell into this limbo for many weeks. But it's nice to see them back, active, signed to a brand new team, playing a lot more, and they've come into a much more competitive North American scene. And what I mean by that, in the idea that this is such a competitive NA scene, is now that I've given you number 4, we are down to 3 final spots. But the thing about these top 3 spots is that they are all number 1. In a 3-way tie for number 1 this week, we have Kings of Urban, Team Knot, and iBuyPower Cosmic. So first, let's talk about each of these teams, why they're in this spot, and then we'll talk a bit about this situation. Because we don't usually see something like this in any power rankings. Maybe you'll get a tie here and there, but a 3-way tie for the number 1 spot is fairly unprecedented. So, we'll start with Kings of Urban, who moved up 2 spots this week to get into that place. Having only played in the IRCL recently, Kings of Urban is at least keeping a bit active. While their 3-0 win against Voltage is at least somewhat expected, the fact that IBP hasn't played and that nearly everyone else was involved in the RLC Pro League, there's been a bit of a tie within the top 3. Though we won't see as much this week, we do know that Kings of Urban's past history has been quite impressive, so if they are able to keep up with their reputation, they have a very good chance of securing the NA throne. Although they must avoid laying stagnant for too long, or else positions will change in a heartbeat. And that is Durkind. So with that, let's move on to Team Knot. Gibbs did this little write-up. I'm sorry. Kings of Urban is Fireburner, Jacob, and Moses. Nexus, of course, is Lachinio, Waffle, and Pluto. Now, Team Not, who is officially Class 6 and Low 5, that third spot has been kind of up in the air, but typically has been filled by Kyle Mass. So, giving us a bit of theatrics last Sunday, Not pulled up an uncharacteristic 3-2 loss against ESN Royalty. However, they powered through against many of the top 10 teams in order to qualify for the RPL, or the RLC, Pro League. What this does prove, though, is that when a team is off from their best performance, even those outside of the top 10 have the ability to take advantage of the situation. Of course, Not does take a hit in the rankings, but their ability to collect themselves and triumph over the teams ahead of them showed that they still deserve a spot in the top 3. Top 1, apparently. But they will move up 1 spot this week to get there. And finally, I Buy Power Cosmic. This write-up, again by Gibbs. Hey guys, Gibbs here. We haven't played much this December, and our rank will begin to show that case for sure. I just wanted to wish everyone a safe Christmas and New Year. I hope we see all of you watching some big events in 2016 with us, hopefully in the finals. 2015 has been amazing thanks to Rocket League and thanks to everyone watching. Hopefully we can entertain a ton in 2016. Thanks for all the discussion around the power rankings, both good and bad. I love you. Not you, the post below yours. Yeah, that one. So, to provide a little bit of additional feedback in that, Gibbs, or Cosmic, didn't really do much this past week. They've automatically qualified for the Pro League, so they didn't have to play in the qualifying matches, and they've been a bit quiet lately. That bit of quiet may end up kicking them ultimately out of the top 3, or out of that number 1 spot, as I should say. But for now, they're safe. So let's talk a little bit about this. Why did we see a 3-way tie for first place? So in order to provide you a bit of insight, we have to look at basically how everybody individually ranked to the top 3. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the way these rankings are determined is that Durkand, Gibbs, and Cloudfuel independently rank the top 10 plus teams. And they create their own, like about top 15 or so every week. Based off of the top 15 that they rank, the average is then given, which creates these rankings that you see here. So with that in mind, let me tell you how each person ranked Cosmic, Not, and Kings of Urban. So we'll start with Cosmic. Cosmic was ranked 2 by Durkand, 2 by Gibbs, and 3 by Cloudfuel. That gave them an average of 2.33. Team Not was ranked 3 by Durkand, 3 by Gibbs, and 1 by Cloudfuel, which gave them an average of 2.33. Kings of Urban was ranked number 1 by Durkand, number 1 by Gibbs, and number 5 by Cloudfuel, which gave them a ranking average of 2.33. So that's the reason that we have a 3-way tie, as you can see, for that number 1 spot. So the big, obvious standout there is Cloudfuel. So why did Cloudfuel rank Kings of Urban 5th? Which means that his top 5 were Team Not, number 1, Nexus, number 2, Cosmic, number 3, Orange Creamsicle, number 4, and Urban, number 5. So that little, that huge dip and that big difference of opinion there is what caused Kings of Urban to not get the number 1 spot exclusively. So it's a bit surprising. Yeah, the power rankings you're hearing right now have indeed been posted. These are them. They're from the week of the 23rd, so they're old because they weren't done this past week. No rankings were done this past week. Next week there will be rankings. So these are kind of old. But I wanted to talk at least about them, mainly because of how interesting this situation is. this 1 through 1 or 1 through 3, whatever you want to call it. This top 3 is a really interesting setup. So I want to talk a little bit about why Cloud Fuel would have ranked Kings of Urban 5th when Durkin and Gibbs clearly saw so much good in them that they ranked them number 1. So with that in mind, we can kind of look at, at least some of the results. We know Kings of Urban automatically qualified for the Pro League alongside Cosmic. We also know that they are undefeated in the IRCL, which is something that even Cosmic cannot say. So, being 5-0, that's really all they played lately. They haven't done anything else. But it just seems surprising that they would be ranked in that 5th spot. So I'd obviously need to have Cloud Fuel here to provide the sort of necessary insight in figuring out why he made that rank. So I don't know if he's around. Maybe I'll ask. Let's see if Cloud Fuel's around, and we can get a little bit of insight. Because it's a very important question. I won't necessarily be able to get him maybe like on the phone or anything, but if I can get him to pop into the chat and give us just a small amount of feedback, that would be helpful. But anyway, while we're waiting on that, so, anyway, we'll see if we can get him involved in here and figure out what the situation is and what exactly led to his decision-making in this particular week, because I'm very curious about it. But here's something else that I wanted to talk about based off of the rankings and just everything kind of in general. So, one thing you might notice, if you watch the EU Power Rankings show and then watch this one thing you might notice is that most of the teams on this list are not sponsored, which is a very different situation compared to the EU scene, in which most of those teams are sponsored. So if we look here, out of this top 10, there are only 1, 2, 3 sponsored teams. And that's Cosmic, Nexus, and Apollo. That's it. Every other team on this list is unsigned. So they're not part of an org, they don't have a sponsor, nothing like that. And it's really interesting. I think a lot of these teams are kind of holding out a bit, waiting for the scene to get a bit bigger, make sure they get a more interesting and worthwhile deal, which is fair. I know that's what Cosmic did. They really held out and waited to get a very good deal, and they got one with iBuyPower. But, yeah, it's an interesting thought. So I do see that question. Is next week's power ranking going to be the same in 3 teams in number 1? Probably not. I would be very, very surprised if this 3-way tie stays the same. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more to work with over the course of the week. We'll see what happens on Sunday and everything like that. So, but don't worry, we'll find out this weekend, Dudge. It's okay. So, Fisho's going to join Team Rocket US. Interesting. Alright, let's see. I'm not sure what we're going to see this weekend, to be honest with you. I really don't. I don't know who will get in there, who will actually play, what will happen, and if we'll get some change in these rankings. I'm not involved in the NA power rankings directly like I am with EU, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Alright, Dodge. Loudmouth. Opinion on Redline Shockwave. I know that name, but why don't I know that team? They used to be known as something else, didn't they? Swear I remember, but yeah, I don't have much of an opinion. Like I said, right now I'm getting adjusted to the NA scene a little bit. I'm trying to get used to it. I know the EU scene practically like the back of my hand, but I'm still trying to make sure I'm comfortable with the NA stuff. I just wanted to do this show, despite the fact that everything's kind of old. Really just for fun. That's really it. But, yeah, anyway. So, there's your top 10. There's your rankings. Talk to me. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback? What do we want to ask, talk about, or do anything for this debut NA Power Ranking show? I don't know if anybody's playing tonight. I think after the Power Ranking show is done, I'll probably just fire up some Rocket League normally and just do something on stream for a little bit. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad to be doing it. I wanted to do it for a little bit. I've been getting a lot of requests to do it, so I figured now was a good time. NA players could go to EU if they wanted to. It's just logistically and internally a difficult situation for an online game. I don't have any news on the RLC Pro League yet, but I assure you that when I know and can say, I will tell everybody. You want an opinion? Okay, who do I want to move up? I want Nexus to move back up. I really enjoyed the Nexus Cosmic rivalry, which has kind of been on the back burner lately just due to the way things have played out recently. So I'd like to see Nexus move back up. I'd like to see that rivalry take shape again at some point in some way. But yeah, in the meantime, so that's what I'd like to see. As far as the other teams go, I'd also like to see Apollo move up a little bit in the rankings. I've always thought that SNK was a really solid team, so I'd like to see them move up the rankings a bit more. Same thing with Creamsicle. I want to see this top 3 rivalry grow into the top 5. Like, that's what I'd really like to see. So, and I want to see Cosmic drop to number 2, because yeah. If I could coach any of these teams, who would I pick? I would honestly probably want to coach any of the teams outside of the top 5. Like, Apollo would be something I'd be really interested in. Mainly due to the fact that I know how good Apollo 11 is, and I know how solid of a team they are, and I'd like to see. I'd love to be able to help in a way, in some way, to give them that extra little edge to get back into the top 5 and really start to challenge stuff. I applied for something. I haven't gotten any response yet, so I'm going to be a little quiet in that regard for now, until I have a little bit of something to go on. Trying to make sure my phone is charging. There it goes. I have this wireless charger, and it's being a little difficult right now. Anyway. But yeah, I think as long as the team's outside of that top 5, I could probably be interested in it, because I think a lot of the other teams probably are set or don't really necessarily need it. Or I don't know. Maybe they do. Who's my favorite player worldwide? I don't have favorite players. I know too many of them to have a favorite. Cosmic maintained number 1 simply due to averages. Literally, the funny thing is that nobody this week actually ranked them number 1. They were all ranked either 2 or 3. The only teams that got ranked number 1 by anybody this week were not in Kings of Urban. And Kings of Urban should have been the uncontested top 5 or number 1, but they got ranked number 5 by Cloud Fuel, and that lowered their average perfectly in line with Not and Cosmic. So it's kind of crazy. All right, let's see. Well, I know Psyonix is going to do something. Like, that's a fact. But without their involvement, it will grow, but it will grow really, really slow. Like, really slow. But fortunately, we know they are getting involved in some way, so this will be the year. Mike is one of my favorite people. I can tell you that much at least. No, I disagree with that completely. The top 5 of NA is not that far below EU. I mean, we've seen that in the last Rocket Royale, it was Cosmic versus Flipside. You know, I still consider Flipside to be the number 1 team in the world, but I don't think that the difference in everything is so huge like that. Thanks, Diggy. Take care, my friend. He's just a good guy. He's somebody I enjoy playing with and you know, hanging out with and just talking to and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't have favorite players. That's not how I look at the scene. As much of a fan of it as I am, I'm just a fan of the competitive side. I don't have favorite teams or favorite players. So I appreciate the skills of many of the individuals and teams involved, for sure. But do I think Psyonix want to help Rocket League become an esport? Rocket League already is an esport. I think Psyonix is going to ultimately get involved very soon. I know they are. I don't know when exactly, but I know they're getting involved. They just hired a guy to handle esports internally. That's Luke Thompson. So, yeah, I mean, they're moving. I just don't know when or where. That is a really interesting story that happened, and it kind of explains what's going to happen to a potential MLG Pro Rocket League Season 2. But yeah, that situation where Activision Blizzard basically bought the majority of the assets from MLG is very interesting. Because I don't know what exactly it does to the MLG brand, and I don't know exactly what assets were sold to Activision. So, I don't know the depth of that situation yet, but it is a really interesting story. I'm not too surprised, considering that MLG's kind of bread and butter for a long time was Call of Duty. And when the World League ultimately got given to ESL, I was like, well, you know, what's MLG going to do now? Halo? So, yeah, I'm not too surprised that kind of fell apart on them. But it is just really shocking and surprising. I wish I had an ETA, Yemen. I really did. I really wish I knew exactly what the full situation was and what was going to happen, but yeah, I have no idea yet. But I tell you, as soon as we know what the deal is going to be, and as soon as it can be revealed, or as soon as they speak on it, I will definitely hop in there and make sure everybody else knows. Excuse me. Which of the disbanded teams do you wish would come back? Oh, good question. There are a lot of teams that have recently disbanded. It's getting fun out there. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know which disbanded team I think I'd wanna see come back. There's a lot of orgs that I'd like to see get back into Rocket League, if that counts for anything. Not necessarily like with the same exact teams, but just getting back into Rocket League, like VQ. I'd like to see get back. Swarm, Bittersweet, that'd be great. But yeah. When is the next 1v1 tournament? Hopefully Wednesday. I'll have something final on that soon. I'll figure it out. I have to come together with a slightly better way to handle it this time. It's a hard one-person situation. Thoughts on the Noble situation? The Noble situation is... it's fun. It is esports. Let me tell you right there. What's going on with Noble, that is esports 100%. I'm going to wait to talk about the Noble situation until a little bit more is official and announced and final. There's a lot that I know about right now that is not public. But it is a proper esports situation. I'm going to tell you that much right now. So hopefully by Wednesday, when I do the EU Power Ranking show, we'll talk about it. Is there an EU Power Ranking? Funny you should ask. Yes, there is. And every Wednesday, there will be an EU Power Ranking show, like there always is, every week. Except for this past week, because there was no EU Power Ranking. Team Rocket's not disbanded. They're just not going in as hard, as big as they were. It's more of a casual thing. It's Doomsy, Cole, and Wrong Way Woody, who are just doing their thing kind of now. So, less like really competitive and more just having fun. Alright. Which team do you think is going to most improve and move up the power rankings? I think Nexus and OC stand a good chance of starting to crack into that top 3 and making this whole top 5 right now, this whole top 5 situation is really interesting. And I think is going to be mixed up a bit over the next few weeks, for sure. Yeah, Kyle is a sub for iBuyPower. I don't know what his contract situation is, though, in that regard. But yeah, Not needs a third. That's a big thing that Not needs right now, is a full-time, proper third. So, I don't know what that situation is. Yeah, to explain the Noble situation from the information that's been released so far, Noble is changing their full-time front lineup to Stocky, O'Neal, and Skyline, which means that Vogan is going to be going into a sub role. Right now there's a bit of confusion as far as if Vogan is going to remain on the team or leave, and a lot of that can come down to contracts and things like that, so I don't know that situation yet. I know some things of it, but that's as much as I'm going to say is what we know so far. Meeps is, but he doesn't really have the availability to be a big part of the team. If he did, he'd probably be in that conversation too. But, yeah, there's a big reason why the change to Nobles happened. It's a move that the they made ultimately to, based off of recent performance. Frankly, that's all it is, in a lot of ways. So, if I had to make a real top 3 for the ranking, what would it be? The teams would be the same. I would probably say not Urban, Cosmic would be the order that I would give it. Just because Cosmic hasn't done anything lately, and I can only let a team survive on their name and their history for so long. But if they're not playing, then yeah, they're going to get bumped. Okay. Let me make sure I got caught up with everything. Trying to make sure I didn't miss any questions. If I haven't gotten your question, I think I'm caught up. But if I missed your question, ask it again. No, O'Neal never O'Neal didn't step down necessarily, but he got moved into a sub role, and justifiably so. The trio of Vogan, Skyline, and Stocky was a superior combination for a while, but they're falling behind again. And there's a lot of analysis that has gone into the improvements that O'Neal has made in that sub role in his off time, trying to be better and improve himself. And he's, as a team, it's a better move. So, I don't consider Kyle an IBP player. He's a sub, and he's a mobile sub. So, if Not's going to play with him, and they're going to win, then I'm going to factor him in. So, that is a fact. What teams do I think can break into the top 10? Well, the teams that are on the bubble right now are probably within that conversation. We're looking at Dragonfly, Voltage, Double Tap, Turbulence, and ECN Royalty. I think they could all potentially move in and out of there. But it's such a difficult thing, We haven't seen a lot of movement within the power rankings in NA like we have in EU. So those would probably be the most likely teams to edge their way in there. I gave him a little bit of advice. So here's what my contribution to the situation was. We were looking at the performance of the various compositions of Noble in pro-level games, scrims, things like that. And the team awareness, field awareness, and decision-making was superior, in particular, with Skyline and O'Neal. They really stood out in that regard. Out of the remaining players, Stocky and Vogan, picking the third there really came down to other kind of effective decisions. And it was my opinion to him, and this was something he had also considered, that Stocky was likely the best third person there. But I liked the composition of Stocky, Skyline, O'Neal. And out of the games that they played against a lot of pro-level teams and pro players, that team worked best and was getting the best performance. So, this is the kind of decision that made sense in the current climate, but it could change. I don't know. But that was my opinion. That's what I told him. That's what I thought, just based off of what I had seen. So, that's what we went with. That's what he went with. I had no factor in the decision, but anyway. I think Cosmic can very well still be number one, but they shouldn't be number one here. I don't think they deserve to be number one in this lineup, honestly. They've been out of action for too long. They definitely need more in there. Pardon me a moment. I got a slushie from Sonic. It's very good. Well, thank you, Gorilla. I appreciate that. I mean, I don't think it's magic. With Jorellis disbanding, that knocked out a team from the spot, so everything kind of shifts up one, generally, so to say. So that gave the opportunity for a team that might have been number 11 to suddenly be number 10. Nothing magic there. What does SNK need to do to get a higher position? Well, I think as far as SNK goes, it's really a matter of... To be fair, I'd have to watch more of SNK. I haven't seen a lot of their games lately, and that's my biggest problem. But just based off the information that I have, they are a team that should be 6 or 7 and is currently 8. And I think a lot of that is just fixing the little gaps that make up those close losses, you know, whatever they may be. Oh, an opinion on Electric Zero. I like the members of Electric Zero a lot. You know, very solid team there. It's interesting that they've broken into the top 10, and I'd like to see how they fare. They're really going to need to play some of these higher up teams to really own this spot, or at least climb up a little bit. But it's their first week on the rankings, so I'm going to wait and see kind of how they do, honestly. Octane is on Mad Magic 2.0. I don't make these power rankings, and they are old. This power ranking was officially released on the 23rd. So, they are a little out of date. So wait for the next week's power rankings to take into account any recent wins, losses, performances, things like that. My opinion on performance-enhancing drug use in Rocket League, I think Gibbs needs to stop drinking. It's his biggest problem right now. Gibbs' most recent performance with Cosmic. Cosmic has recent performances? I haven't seen them. I haven't seen them. NA's the worst. I mean, NA's not terrible, but they're not as good as EU overall. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the level of competition in EU is just higher. Can't say for sure. I think we might just turn this into a normal stream instead of a competitive or a power ranking stream thing. can't answer that. I can't give you a international top 10 because it's not. It would have to be based off of international competition. Why don't I play competitively? Because I'm a shit player. That's all there is to it. I'm a caster, not a player. Thoughts on failure to launch? I mean, they're clearly in a good spot. They made it to Pro League. They got out of the open bracket. They had some pretty solid wins. I'm eager to see how they fare in the Pro League, and if they manage to steal any good wins or spoil any teams. But they're kind of